Gender-affirming healthcare has a pretty self-explanatory name. It is healthcare that affirms your actual gender, not necessarily the gender that you were assigned at birth.
I do think queer disabled people are more likely to be misgendered in the healthcare system. It's just that intersection of identities that aren't respected, and it just compounds with every marginalised identity you have.
Queer disabled people are more likely to be misgendered in the healthcare system because we access the healthcare system an awful lot more than a queer person who is not disabled.
To me, being non-binary means that I don't believe in, agree in, or want to live in the gender binary. Kia ora, my name's Disabili-Tea. My pronouns are they, them, and I live in Poneke in Wellington. I am a queer, non-binary, disabled person, and I am a writer, a creative, and just trying to survive. I'm disabled by my chronic pain and chronic fatigue, and those come from a couple of the conditions I have, including endometriosis. My disabilities in particular are quite linked to gender, and to have gynecological conditions is a constant battle. But to be queer and have these conditions, it compounds the difficulty of talking about it, of explaining it, of accessing the support I need. To be misgendered feels like a punch in the gut. It feels like people don't really care. I've been in and out of the healthcare system a lot, and it was only quite recently that someone asked me my pronouns, and someone asked me what my gender identity was rather than just assuming, and I felt a real connection with that nurse, and I'm often back in that same department these days. Every time I turn up, I hope she's there, because it just feels like things are the way that you want them to be.
I identify simply as queer. I don't particularly identify with any specific labels around gender or sexuality. Just under the rainbow somewhere. I'm Cait, and my pronouns are they, them. It's not that my preferred pronouns are they, them. It's not that I identify as non-binary. I am non-binary. My pronouns are they, them. I have 3 umbrellas of disability, which have their own complexities within them. I have mental health challenges. I have functional neurological disorder, which is a malfunctioning nervous system. I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is a genetic connective tissue disorder causing weak collagen. Collagen is basically the glue that holds your entire body together, and mine is really weak and way too stretchy, and it causes problems everywhere. I am paralysed from the waist down and have been for nearly 3 years. The only option I have for getting around is in a wheelchair.
I think it can be really hard to look after a queer body. It is a fight, and it is a fight that we fight every single day, every moment of every day if you're disabled.
It is almost a full-time job trying to keep myself out of hospital and just keep me ticking along. And it's a full-time job that you don't get paid for, you didn't apply for, and you don't get holidays from.
8 pills twice a day, and then I've got a midday dose as well. And that can sometimes depend on how much pain I'm in, because if I'm in a lot of pain, then I'll usually be awake all night.
I take 15 different medications, basically for pain, for mental health, and for gastro symptoms.
So my pain this year has been worsening. Not quite sure what's causing it, but it has gotten up to a 10. When you're accessing healthcare, being gendered correctly as a queer disabled person just means that you have a base of mutual respect from which you can access your healthcare.
In the decade that I have been accessing healthcare on a weekly basis, I could add on one hand the amount of times that I have been asked what my pronouns are, that I have had anyone show any interest in respecting that I might not be a cis straight woman. This is not a fashion trend. This is not a phase. This is inherent to absolutely every part of who I am and how I exist in the world. That's why it's important.
Kia ora. Kia ora. Do you want to come on through?
Yeah,
Make
yeah.
a cup of tea?
Need me some coffee?
Yeah, coffee will do. Today I'm meeting Cait, and they're also queer and disabled. They're a huge advocate for gender-affirming healthcare, and we're going to have a little chat about that.
Death before decaf.
It'd be a good tattoo.
It would be a good tattoo. Personally, as a queer disabled person, as someone who is gender non-conforming, but I don't know, health non-conforming as well, it's almost like when you're queer and disabled, people simply don't make that much space for you.
Yeah.
It's like, why do able-bodied, non-disabled queer people get to have space made for that part of who they are?
A lot of my disability comes from gynecological conditions.
Yes.
And a cis gay woman trying to receive treatment for that is hard enough without me coming in there and telling them, don't treat me like a woman because I'm not a woman.
Yes.
It just blows their mind to the point where they don't comprehend how to give me the right healthcare. And it's so exhausting. And you're right, like, I've definitely shrunk myself down into whatever is going to get me the healthcare that I need as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Because in some situations, that's literally all we can do is just survive the best we can.
Yeah. I find, and this is not something that I'm proud of, but I kind of just give into it. I don't have the energy to fight to be seen. And so a lot of my life is spent just pretending to be somebody that I'm not because it's easier.
It can be really hard to see a way forward.
Oh, yeah.
For this, for us, because it feels like this has been the way things are for so long.
Yeah. Having such a core aspect of your identity entirely denied, it's not even that it's just ignored. You bring it up and they say, no, you can't. You lose a sense of self-worth. You lose a sense of what you're worth. Your value just diminishes. My body currently feels like public property, like it belongs to the healthcare system. Yeah. I don't get a say in what I look like, who I am, how I present myself.
In my experience with endometriosis, I found it really hard when things like healthcare guidelines are put together. It's something that has worked on for decades and decades, and they're put out finally, and everyone's like, oh, cool, we've got it. It becomes such a hard ask to say, the government needs to put queer and trans people and genderqueer people, the rainbow communities, at the heart of what gender-affirming healthcare looks like. We need to be part of that conversation to come up with these guidelines, to come up with the training programs for healthcare professionals. The only thing that keeps me going is that I hope that they will listen.
The only thing I kind of come up with is that we need to be seen. And I think, if we can make Pride more inclusive, if we can continue to push disability pride, there are so many of us. Yeah. There are so many of us.
25% of New Zealand's population is disabled.
How many of those people also fit under the queer community? There are so many of us. Why are we not seen? I get to a point where I think surely if we are loud enough, if we are visible enough.
I think if we're loud enough, they can't ignore us.
Yeah.
My hope for the queer and disabled community is that we continue to fight. This matters because queer disabled people matter, and we deserve better than how we're treated.
I can't remove from myself the fact that I am queer, and I can't remove from myself the fact that I am disabled. Nobody accesses healthcare for fun. You access healthcare because you need that healthcare.
To have those chats, those important and meaningful conversations with queer and disabled people is how we keep going. That solidarity is what keeps us going, keeps us fighting.